Camera 8 recorded a man walking floor 11 at 2:47 a.m. 42 nights in a row. Same second, same gate, same flashlight. Floor 11 was sealed. Physical deadbolts. Every keycard deactivated. The reader powered down for asbestos work. The door log still shows my badge opening it. Badge 0247, 24709. Access granted. I never left the lobby desk. Camera 2 proves that. The man on floor 11 wore my jacket. His right shoulder sat lower than his left, the way mine has since 2019. The footage has my face. My name is Walt Garfield. I did 19 years on the graveyard shift at the Colton Tower in downtown Memphis. 22 floors. Glass and steel. Built in 1991, back when the city thought it was going to become something different than what it became. Law firms on the top floors, an insurance company taking up 9 through 14, 2 floors of medical billing, empty space on the rest. I knew every sound that building made. The way the HVAC on the roof cycled down at 3 a.m. and the whole tower went quieter than a held breath. The vending machine on 7 that hummed a half-step flat. The rain on the south-facing glass, which is different from the rain on the north-facing glass. Softer on the south, harder on the north. Something to do with how the wind comes off the river. I knew that building the way you know your own kitchen in the dark. And I am here to tell you that what happened over those 6 weeks in the spring of 2024 was not the building settling. It was not a software error. It was not me being tired. I have the records. I have printed them out. They are in a folder on my kitchen table right now. And I look at them sometimes, and every time I look at them, I feel the same thing. I felt that first night sitting at the lobby desk with the monitors glowing in the dark and the rain on the glass and my cold coffee going cold all over again. Let me start at the beginning. Floor 11 had been locked down for 6 weeks before any of this started. Asbestos abatement. The medical billing company had done a renovation and punched through a wall they were not supposed to punch through, and the air quality people came in and said the whole floor needed to be cleared and sealed. Building management pulled every key card with floor 11 access. That was 63 active cards. Tenants, cleaning crew, HVAC contractors, my badge, all of them. Deactivated. Then they had the contractors install 2 physical deadbolts on the stairwell door and the main elevator lobby door on 11, keyed separately, keys held by the building manager, Prentice Howell, who worked 9 to 5 and was not present on my shift. Nothing was supposed to go up to floor 11. Nobody could go up to floor 11. That is the part I need you to understand before anything else. It was a Thursday. End of my shift, 5:40 in the morning. Still dark outside, the sky just starting to get that gray color over the river. I was doing my end of shift paperwork, which included a routine review of the overnight door log. Every building access event from the previous 12 hours printed from the system or scrolled on screen. I did this every morning. Usually it was 40 or 50 entries. Cleaning crew, the occasional late working tenant, the loading dock, my own rounds. Nothing strange. I was scrolling through the log from the night just ending, and I stopped. There it was, right between a 2:31 a.m. entry for the 6th floor copy room and a 3:04 a.m. entry for the lobby restroom. Badge 0247, floor 11 east stairwell, 0247 a.m. Access granted. Badge 247 is my badge. I sat there and read it twice, 3 times. I set down my coffee. Badge 247. My number. The number I have carried on a lanyard around my neck for 19 years. And the system was telling me that at 2:47 in the morning, my badge had unlocked the floor 11 east stairwell door. I had been at my desk. I knew I had been at my desk. I remember that stretch of the shift. I was watching the rain on camera 3 which faces south toward the river, and I was drinking my second thermos of coffee, and I was thinking about my daughter, which I try not to do but do anyway, and I had not left the lobby. The timestamp said 2:47. My log said I never opened that door. I went to camera 2 first. Camera 2 is the lobby overview. Wide angle, covers the desk, the front doors, the elevator bank, the south corridor entrance. It records continuously. I pulled up the archive for 2:44 a.m. through 3 a.m. There I am, sitting at the desk, right there on the screen, not moving, coffee thermos in front of me. 2:44, 2:45, 2:46, 2:47, 2:48. I do not get up, I do not walk anywhere. At 2:52, I lean forward and adjust something on the monitor. I remember doing that. I was bumping up the brightness on camera 12 because the east parking lot light had been flickering. And then I sit back. I am on that camera the entire time. I am on that camera. And according to the door log, I am also on floor 11. I stared at the screen for a while. I told myself it was a system glitch, badge reader software hiccup. These things happen. Old building, old hardware. The access control panel on 11 is the same one from 2003, and it has had issues before. I told myself that, and I almost believed it, and I would have gone home and slept and forgotten about it. Except then I thought, if the reader glitched, what did camera 8 see? Camera 8 is mounted at the north end of the floor 11 east corridor. We left it running during the abatement because the insurance policy required continuous monitoring of any floor under remediation. The camera is a fixed wide-angle unit, slightly dusty from the abatement work. You can see it in the footage, a kind of gauze over everything, shapes going soft at the edges. But it covers the full length of the corridor, from the stairwell door all the way down to the window at the south end. I pulled up the camera 8 archive for 2:44 through 2:52 a.m. For the first 3 minutes, it was what I expected. An empty hallway, plastic sheeting hanging from the ceiling, fluorescent tubes dark because the abatement crew had cut power to the floor lighting, and the camera was running on emergency circuit, so everything is in that greenish low-light color. The stairwell door at the north end. Closed. 47:9. The stairwell door opens. A figure walks in, slow, unhurried. The walk of somebody who has been up and down this corridor 100 times and is not thinking about where their feet are going. The figure comes in through the door and it swings shut behind them, slowly on its pneumatic closer, and the figure moves down the corridor toward the south window. I leaned closer to the screen. The dust on the lens made everything soft, like watching through frosted glass. I could not make out a face, but I could see the shape of the person. The build, medium height, a little heavy in the shoulders, wearing a dark jacket, and carrying something at their right side hanging down, something cylindrical. A flashlight. My flashlight is a Maglite 3D cell, black, about 14 inches long. I have carried one on every shift for 19 years, because the building has areas the overhead lights do not cover well, and I do not trust those little tactical things. The figure's proportions, the hang of the object at their side, the way they carry it with the lens pointing down. I pushed back from the desk. I looked down at the Maglite sitting on the desk in front of me. I looked back at the screen. The figure walked to the third door on the right, the old records room for the medical billing tenant, and stopped. Just stopped there. Stood in front of that door for maybe 30 seconds, then turned and walked back toward the stairwell the way they came. The stairwell door opened and closed. Camera 8 showed an empty corridor. The whole thing took 2 minutes and 8 seconds. I sat at that desk for a long time after the footage ended. The rain on the south glass had stopped. The HVAC on the roof had gone quiet. The building was as still as I had ever heard it. I picked up my mag light. I turned it over in my hand. I put it back down. I did not go up to floor 11 that morning. I told myself I would look at the records more carefully the next night. I did not know, sitting there, that there were 42 more nights of this waiting for me in the archive. 42 nights I had somehow spent on a floor I had never visited. The system had been keeping track the whole time. I just hadn't been looking. The next night I came in early. I told myself it was nothing, but I came in at 10 p.m. instead of 11, sat down at the desk, got my coffee going, and opened the door log archive before I even took my jacket off. I went back 6 weeks. 6 weeks is how long floor 11 had been locked down. I wanted to check from the first night of the lockdown to last night. 43 nights total, including the one I had already found. I should tell you what I expected to find. I expected to find 1 or 2 stray entries, maybe a system timestamp error clustering around one date, some kind of rollover glitch in the access control software. I expected a logical explanation that would make the whole thing boring and I could stop thinking about it. What I found was this: 42 entries, 42 nights. Bad 247, floor 11 East Stairwell, 2:47 a.m., access granted. Every single night of the lockdown, without exception, beginning on the first night Prentice Howell posted the abatement notice. I printed the log. It was 3 pages. I set it on the desk and smoothed it flat with my palm. 42 nights, always 2:47 a.m., always to the second, 2:47:09, same timestamp every time. Not 2:47:08, not 2:47:10. Always 2:47:09, like a clock someone had wound. I went to the Camera 8 archive. I did not watch all 42. I spot-checked a Monday in early March, a Tuesday in late February, a Friday from the first week of the lockdown. The figure was there every time. Same walk, same build, same flashlight, same corridor, same door, the third one on the right. Every time the figure stopped at that door. Every time it turned and left. Then I found the sick days. I take about 8 sick days a year, always at the end of long stretches, when the night shift grind catches up with me. I pulled my attendance record and found 3 dates within those 42 nights where I had called in sick, and Tommy Reyes had covered my shift. March 3rd, March 17th, April 2nd. I checked Tommy's badge log for those 3 nights. Tommy's badge, number 0251, showed no entries for floor 11 on any of those dates. I checked Camera 8 for March 3rd, March 17th, April 2nd. The figure was there, all 3 nights. The badge log for those nights still showed 0247. My badge, which was in my apartment, in the tray on my dresser, where I leave it on days off because it is clipped to my uniform and I do not wear my uniform on days off. I sat with that for a while. I called the access control vendor's night support line. The system is a Lenel S2 install, about 12 years old, maintained by a company out of Nashville. I explained the situation: specific badge number, specific floor, consistent timestamp, dates when the badge holder was not present. The tech on the line was patient. He walked me through the diagnostic options. He said a cloned badge was theoretically possible, but would require someone to have physically copied the card's HID credential. And cloned cards produce different system fingerprints that show up on the back-end audit log. I asked him to check the audit log for badge 0247. He was quiet for a moment. He said, "All 42 entries show the original card's unique identifier. There is no clone signature." I said, "Is there any way the reader itself could be generating phantom entries?" He was quiet again, longer this time. He said, "Mr. Garfield, I need to ask you something. The floor 11 East stairwell reader, model ID Signo 20K, can you tell me when it was last confirmed powered?" I had the abatement contractor's sign-off sheet in front of me. I read it to him. Electrical disconnected to floor 11 on the day of lockdown. Panel breaker for floor 11 pulled and tagged. Only emergency circuits left live. He said, the Signo 20K requires standard building power to log entries. It does not have a battery backup that persists more than 4 hours. If floor power was pulled 6 weeks ago, that reader has been dark for 6 weeks. I said, then how is it logging entries? He did not have an answer. He told me he would escalate to their engineering team in the morning. I thanked him and hung up. The rain had picked up again. I could hear it on the north glass, the harder sound. The HVAC cycled down. The vending machine on 7 hummed. A powered-down reader had logged 42 entries. A badge sitting on my dresser had opened a door. I want to tell you about March 14th. I almost missed it when I was going through the log the second time. March 14th is a Thursday, and it falls right in the middle of the cluster, and the entry looks like all the others. Badge 247, floor 11 East, 247-9, granted. But March 14th is the night Karen Lott called me. Karen Lott is my supervisor, has been for 11 years. She works days, but she has insomnia, and sometimes she calls in the middle of the night if something is on her mind. A facilities issue, a tenant complaint that came in late, just to check in. On the night of March 14th, she called me at 2:31 a.m. I remember because I looked at the desk phone when it rang and thought, Karen, it is 2:30 in the morning, and then I picked up. We talked for 33 minutes. I know this because the desk phone logs call duration. The call ended at 3:04 a.m. I was on that phone from 2:31 to 3:04. Camera 2 shows me at the desk the entire time. You can see the phone receiver in my hand. At one point, I stand up briefly. Karen said something that surprised me, and then I sit back down. The door log shows my badge on floor 11 at 2:47:09 a.m. Camera 8 shows the figure in the corridor at 2:47:09 a.m. on March 14th. I was on the phone with my supervisor on camera, and I was also, according to 2 separate systems, walking a lockdown floor. I printed the call log. I set it next to the door log. I put them side by side on the desk, and I looked at them. Same minute, same building, different floors. 2 records of me in 2 places at the same time. That is when I started going through camera 8 frame by frame. I'm not a technical person. I know how to work the archive system. I know how to export footage. I know the basic controls. Frame by frame, I can do. It just takes time. I started with March 14th because that was my strongest date, the one I could anchor to the phone call. I went through the 2 minutes and 8 seconds of that footage, 1 frame at a time. The figure walks in. The figure moves down the corridor. The plastic sheeting shifts slightly from the air, displaced by the door opening. The figure carries the flashlight down at its right side. The figure reaches the 3rd door on the right and stops. And then, at 2:48:41, the figure turns its head. Just slightly, not all the way toward the camera, more like something caught their attention at the south window, and they glanced at it, a 3/4 profile turn. The face is toward the lens for maybe 2 seconds. The dust on camera 8 blurs everything past a certain point, but the shape, the jaw, the way the left shoulder sits slightly lower than the right, which is something that happened after my rotator cuff surgery in 2019. The shoulder never went back to quite where it was. I did not write it down. I was not ready to write it down. I went and checked the other 41 nights. In 9 of those nights, the figure turned its head in the same direction. Same motion, same duration, same south window reflex. 9 frames where the camera could almost see the face. I exported the clearest one, March 14th. I brought it up on the main monitor at full resolution, and I sat back and I looked at it. The dust on that lens. 6 weeks of abatement particulate. It saves me from having to say the thing directly. But I know what I saw in the shape of that profile. I know my own jaw. I know the way my left shoulder drops. I got up from the desk and went to the break room and stood at the sink and ran the cold water over my wrists for a while. That is something I do when my thoughts get out ahead of me. Cold water on the wrists. It helps. I stood there until the feeling passed, until I could put a reasonable frame around it. Old camera, bad lens, confirmation bias. The human brain finds familiar shapes in fog, in static, in the grain of wood paneling. A man alone on the night shift for 19 years is going to project himself into the shadows. That is not evidence of anything except tiredness. I went back to the desk. I sat down. I looked at the clock. It was 2:19 a.m., 28 minutes to 2:47. I had not planned to stay at the desk. I had not planned to watch Camera 8 live. I had been planning to do my rounds, check the loading dock, walk the parking structure, do the job. I pulled up Camera 8 on the main monitor and I did not move. I watched the empty corridor, the plastic sheeting, the dark fluorescence, the stairwell door at the north end closed. 2:31, 2:38, 2:44. The rain had stopped. The building had gone to its quietest, the deep of the night quiet that I used to find peaceful and now found like the silence before something you cannot take back. 2:46. I put my hand on the desk phone. I thought about calling Karen. I thought about what I would say. I thought about how it would sound. The stairwell door on Camera 8 opened. The stairwell door on Camera 8 opened, and the figure walked in. I watched it happen, live, not archive footage, not a replay. The timestamp in the corner of the monitor read 2:47:9, and the door swung inward on its pneumatic closer, and the figure stepped through and let the door fall shut behind them. Same walk, unhurried, knowing the space. Dark jacket, right shoulder slightly lower, the mag light hanging down at their side. My badge reader on the desk pinged. I looked down at the small terminal mounted to the right of the monitor bank, the one that shows access events in real time as a secondary feed, a text line that scrolls with each entry. Floor 11 East Stairwell. Badge 247, granted. I looked at my badge, clipped to the breast pocket of my jacket, right where it always is, warm from sitting against my shirt all night. I had not moved. I had been at this desk since midnight. I looked back at Camera 8. The figure was walking down the corridor, past the first door, past the second door, slowing as it approached the third door on the right, the old records room. I stood up. I did not know I was going to do it. My body made the decision before my mind got involved. I was on my feet and I had my mag light in my hand and I was walking to the stairwell before I'd thought the word go. I took the stairs because the elevator would have been too slow and too loud. My footsteps on the concrete, the sound going up the shaft, echo of each step coming back down at me from the floors above. I do not run well anymore. The right knee, same vintage as the shoulder, but I moved as fast as I could. Floor 11 landing, the stairwell door. I stopped. The outer deadbolt, the big one, the barrel lock that Prentice Howell had installed and held the only key. It was not locked. The bolt was retracted. Not forced, not broken. Retracted, as if someone with a key had unlocked it from the inside. The keyhole on the inside of a deadbolt lock is visible when you open the door. This one showed signs of use. A faint shine on the brass around the slot, the kind of polish you get from a key being turned many times over a long period. I pushed the door open. The east corridor. In person, without the camera lens, it is different. The plastic sheeting is heavier than it looks on screen, and it hangs in folds from the ceiling like something in a cold storage facility. And the emergency circuit lights are these low-mounted strips every 20 feet that give everything a thin white underlighting from below, like the floor is faintly glowing. The air has a chemical smell. Abatement sealant, I think, or whatever compound they use to encapsulate the asbestos fibers. But underneath it, faint and wrong, I smelled something else. Coffee. Burnt drip coffee, the specific kind, the kind I make from the machine in the break room on the lobby level. I know that smell the way I know my own hands. I stood in the doorway. The corridor was empty, no figure, no movement. The plastic sheeting hung still. The floor, bare concrete, dust from the abatement work, showed no footprints I could identify as fresh. My flashlight beam moved across it and found nothing out of place. I walked to the third door on the right. The records room door was closed. I tried the handle. Unlocked. I pushed it open. An empty room. Drop ceiling half dismantled, tiles stacked against the far wall. Metal shelving units pushed to the center of the room to give the abatement crew access to the perimeter. A window facing south, the Memphis skyline. The river beyond, low cloud cover catching the orange of the city lights. On the floor, in the middle of the room, a mag light, 3D cell, black anodized aluminum, my model, my exact model. I walked toward it. I crouched down. The grip tape, black friction tape wrapped around the body, same pattern I had done myself years ago because the original finish got slick from sweat in the summers. And on the battery cap, on the aluminum end cap that screws off, an engraved letter, W. I had done that with a pocket knife, maybe 10 years back. Poked it in freehand, not deep, just enough to catch a thumbnail, so I could identify mine if it rolled under something or got mixed up with the cleaning crew's equipment. My maglite was in my right hand. This maglite was on the floor. I reached down and picked it up. It was warm. Not warm the way something is warm from sitting in a heated space. Warm the way something is warm from being held in a person's hand for several hours. I stood up straight. I looked at the window. I looked at the dismantled ceiling. I looked at the door behind me, the corridor beyond it, the plastic sheeting, the low strip lights. I looked at the maglite in my left hand. I looked at the maglite in my right hand. Both had grip tape. Both had the W on the battery cap. They were identical in every detail I could identify. I put the one from the floor back down, very carefully, exactly where it had been. I straightened up and walked back to the door. Camera 8 is mounted at the far north end of the corridor. I had forgotten about it until I turned to leave, and then the red recording light caught my eye. A small LED blinking in the dimness above the stairwell door. I was standing exactly at the midpoint of the corridor, exactly where the figure always stood. I looked at the camera. The camera looked back. I thought about the 42 nights of footage, the 9 frames where the figure had turned its head toward the south window, the profile that I had refused to name. I was standing in the frame now, right now, live. And somewhere downstairs on the monitor at the lobby desk, Camera 8 was recording whatever it was recording. I did not know if it was recording me. I did not know if it had ever been recording me. I went back downstairs. I took the stairs, same as before, slower on the way down. I came through the lobby stairwell door and crossed to the desk and sat in my chair, and I looked at the Camera 8 feed. The corridor was empty. Not empty the way it had been empty when I walked through it 30 seconds ago. Empty like it had always been empty. No movement of the plastic sheeting from a door closing. No residual swirl of disturbed air column dust in the flashlight light. Empty and still and undisturbed, as if no one had been there. As if I had not just been there. I pulled up the Camera 8 archive, most recent entry. I scrubbed back to 2:47. The stairwell door opened at 2:47:9. The figure walked in. I watched it walk to the third door. I watched it stop. I watched myself. That is what I'm telling you. I watched myself from the camera angle doing what I had just done. The dark jacket, the right shoulder dipping, the mag light in the right hand. The figure picked something up from the floor. It stood up, it turned, it looked at camera 8 for 3 seconds, and the face, the dust on that lens. I leaned close to the screen. I needed to see. I needed to know if the face on the recording was mine or if it was something else wearing my shape. There is a difference, and I needed to know which one. The resolution is not good enough. I pulled the frame to maximum zoom. The image broke into blocks, the face became geometry, the jaw became a curved line, the eyes became 2 dark smears. I cannot tell you definitively what I saw. I can tell you the shape was right. I can tell you the left shoulder was low. I can tell you the figure turned and walked back toward the stairwell, and the door opened, and it was gone at 2:49:17. And after that, the corridor was empty, the same way it's empty now. I looked down at my right hand, the mag light in my grip. I turned it over, the grip tape, the battery cap. I thumbed the cap, felt for the letter. The W was gone. I brought it into the desk light. Bare aluminum, no engraving, no trace of a mark. I turned the flashlight on. It worked fine. Same beam, same brightness. But the surface of the battery cap was smooth. I had not noticed it going smooth. I had not felt it change. But between the lobby and floor 11 and back again, the W I put there 10 years ago with a pocket knife had ceased to exist. I set the flashlight on the desk. I did not pick it up again for the rest of the shift. At 6 a.m., Prentice Howell came in to open the building. I told him the floor 11 east stairwell deadbolt had been found unlocked. He looked at me the way people look at you when they're deciding if you're lying or just confused. He said that wasn't possible. He had the only key. He went up to check. He came back down 15 minutes later. He said the deadbolt was locked, both of them, and the floor was undisturbed. He had a slight edge in his voice that told me the conversation was over. I clocked out. I drove home. I sat at my kitchen table and I looked at the printed door logs and the call log from March 14th. I have 19 years on the graveyard shift. I know the difference between a glitch and a record. I know the difference between a tired brain and a printed page. The records say I was there, the footage says I was there, my shoulder says I was there, I was at the desk the whole time. Both of those things are true. I stopped trying to make them fit together. I just live with the gap now, and I do not, under any circumstances, look at camera 8 at 2:47 in the morning, because the last time I did, the corridor wasn't empty.